Well, it's no secret that we have a huge service economy here in South Florida, which brings us to what has become for some a pretty sore subject: tipping. Whether you go to a restaurant, bar, fast food spot, coffee shop, whether you catch an Uber or have your meal delivered, everybody, it seems, wants a tip. Folks have become so weary of it, they have coined a new phrase for it: tipflation. According to a recent poll, 72% of Americans say they are expected to tip more now than 5 years ago. How do folks living here feel about this? Well, depends who you ask.
I only tip if I'm eating at a restaurant.
I always tip, yeah.
Depends of the service.
Well, I base that percentage off the service that I get.
In fact, the mood around tipping has taken a negative turn. Another survey finds nearly 60% of Americans now view tipping in a negative light, and 35%, look at that, say it's just out of control. That's why we thought it would be a perfect topic to wrestle with in our latest 20, 40, 60, in which 3 generations wrestle with one topic. And we have 3 highly opinionated guests joining us today for this topic. Repping the 20-somethings is Ryan Gleischer, digital producer here at CBS News Miami. Ryan, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Jim.
Also, Michael Altman, owner and executive chef of the new Kitchen 57 restaurant in South Miami. He knows the restaurant biz inside and out. And speaking his mind for the 60-somethings, veteran business executive Bill Diggs. He's now executive director of the Miami-Dade Economic Advocacy Trust. All right, Bill, let me start with you. It seems to me that now, since the pandemic, tipping has really zoomed, and it seems to be a thing that we've really had to adjust to. Am I right or wrong?
No, you're right. I mean, it's almost like we're paying the salary of some of the employees. It's high. It's a lot.
Too much, you think?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, it is too much. I mean, you know, because sometimes there's service tip. I mean, there's a tip, there's service charge. You're tipping for takeout food. I mean, it's just all too much. It's confusing.
Ryan, you're representing the 20-somethings, and a lot of the folks who are getting the tips are younger people like yourself. Yeah. Are we not sensitive enough to the fact that you guys have to be on the grind and try to make it as much as you can?
Well, look, we're trying to make the grind and do all this stuff in the community and like at like a restaurant or whatever. But there's a point where it's too much. Like when you see the Square app, it's like, oh, I'm gonna be asked if I want a tip. And if it's a place like a cafe or something, you know, maybe if it's for a barista, but if it's just for a person taking your order and grabbing something, that's too much. I mean, I don't know. That's just how I feel about it. Yeah. But I mean, for a young worker, I think you should tip in the right situation.
Yeah, I guess a lot of people I talk to, Michael, say, you know what, if the restaurants just paid more, we wouldn't have this issue. Is it that simple or not?
It's not that simple.
Why not?
Well, if we have, as restaurateurs, we have expenses, we have sales that we need to combat with, and to be able to operate and live our own living, we need to be able to pay people to produce food at certain rates, and dishwashers and upper management as well. And I think over time it's just something that's been done that we follow with. We still do have to pay those employees at what's called a tip rate, and then the rest of their livelihood is made up in tips. And it's not tips are not mandatory, right? If you think about it, and
I don't know, because some restaurants I go to, you know, like Bill said, I see the service charges automatic, like I have no choice. And I think to someone who's old school, you're thinking, well, look, I'll pay for the service. I'll give you a great tip if the service is terrific. But if it's not, why am I still being hit with the tip? Bill, am I right or wrong there?
No, I mean, you're right. I mean, you know, it's like for me and my wife, you know, I mean, listen, it's date night. You know, I don't want to go and have to fight with the waiter about a tip. You know, so and they say, well, you know, it's not mandatory, but now all of a sudden I got to go out and be a jerk and say, hey, can we talk about this? like I'm giving her performance appraisal, right? I mean, and it just becomes hard because I just want to go and eat, pay a reasonable rate for the food, and chances are, you know, like I was saying earlier, I've gone here before, right? So it comes down to the waitress or the waiter, and I just want to make sure that I'm tipping commensurate with the service. I just don't want to feel like I've got service charge and then you get the explanation about, well, everyone shares in this. I only get the tip.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, so do I need a Ouija board to figure this out?
Ryan, what about that? I guess a lot of people like Bill think they're used to tipping the waiter, but not the folks in the back who you don't see.
Well, I mean, in a way, having that automatic gratuity charge like you're referring to before, that could be good to tipping the people in the back. But also a key part to keep in mind is not a lot of people have cash to just give to,
That's fair.
the waiter or whatever, because at this point, people are moving more to credit cards and stuff. So at this point, I'd say people in the back, they deserve as much of a tip, I'd say, as their waiter or whatever, because they're probably being paid similar wages. But there's a certain extent beyond that where it is a little too much. Like if there's like someone in a higher position, like let's say a chef, I don't know if he deserves one compared to like maybe a busser or someone like that.
Want to weigh in on that, Mike?
Yeah, I think it ends up being part of the individual restaurateur or business owners, how they want to pay their staff or tip out their staff.
Yeah.
Many that I know and have spoken with, back of the house, the kitchen, the dishwashers do not get tips. There are many that do as well. So they're paid a much higher hourly rate. And as minimum wage increases up to 2026, this is going to become a much more prevalent conversation, and this show could go on forever potentially.
Yeah, but you've heard this frustration, I'm sure, and I know some restaurants have moved to say, you know what, no tips whatsoever. You come in here, you just eat, and that's it. If you want to give a tip, great. But I think some restaurateurs are sensitive to the fact that people are feeling it's just too much.
Yeah, I don't know. I think tip reflects service. So at my restaurant, we give the best service that we can, because that is what I want to give my guests, the best experience possible.
Yeah.
And then it's up to the guest to leave a tip. So if there's bad service, the servers are going to get bad tips. If there's good service, they're going to get a good tip. But that's kind of that's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And through training, it's not an ongoing issue for us.
Yeah.
But
Ryan, you talked about the fact of that screen, and I have felt this. Yeah. Like I order some takeout food, and so I'll go to the restaurant and I'll whip up my credit card and say, okay, Jim, there's the bill. Then I look at the screen and it's giving me all these options, and then the person there is looking at me, looking at the screen, and I'm feeling guilty because if I don't give him a tip, I feel like the jerk. But if I do give him a tip, I feel bad, Bill.
Well, listen, that's exactly what I'm talking about, And again, I don't feel as bad when it's takeout, to be quite honest with you, because when look, if it's takeout, I got a rule. I'm not tipping you.
Really?
Right? I mean, unless you want me to go in the back and grab my own food and put it together, I'm just not tipping you takeout. I think that's disingenuous.
Yeah.
And the person that owns the place, that's their issue, right? I just won't do it, and so for me, that's the drawing line, right? But I'll tell you this. I have learned, and as I watch my habits, I don't go back to a restaurant that has a service charge and ask me for a tip anymore. I just don't go there. Yeah, because I don't want to ruin my night. Right, I've had a great night. I will go to a place, because the silent killer in the restaurant business, from what I understand, is when you don't come back anymore.
Yep.
So my idea is that I'm a habitual person. I go to the same places many times.
Sure, if they treat you well, then you'll go back and over and over.
Exactly.
So what about being sensitive to that point, Michael, where people, may not say it out loud, but they just will like, you know what, I'm not going back there anymore because of the policy.
Yeah. You never find out about it because they don't come back and they don't say it. Most people just don't come back, and then you look at your analytics, you look at your numbers, you see things are dropping. Why is this week different than this week? And we don't happen to do service charge. I personally don't believe in service charge, right? Because if we're doing our job, which is giving good service, then there should not be an issue.
All right. So Ryan, what's how do we get out of this tipping point, if you will? What's the answer?
Well, basically the key solution to this is just get rid of the feature in Square where you flip over the screen and you say how much do you want to tip, because if someone wants a tip, they could tip. They could leave cash if they wanted to. I mean, I'm sure there's a way to do it, but a little less invasively.
Gotcha.
I mean, so if there's a way to do that, I mean, that's probably.
Don't make me feel guilty.
Yeah, you don't want to feel like the Grinch, but you also don't want to be forced into something.
Yeah, all right. Yeah. Guys, I appreciate your perspective on this. I'm sure a lot of people here in South Florida can relate because it's something that is confronted by everybody. Thank you so much.